It's Friday, July 14, 2023. Good morning and welcome to the morning news here on TV3 with me, Godwin Asidiba. Coming up this morning. In the bulletin this morning, Speaker Alban Babing directs for a 7-member committee to be formed to probe a leaked tape in which the removal of the IGP was discussed. The National House of Chiefs endorsed moves to pass LGBTQ bill and re-echo calls to end galamsey. Ghana Refugee Board joins national security to deny UNHCR report that Ghana is forcefully repatriating Burkinabe refugees seeking asylum in the country. A little later on the international front, South Africa's top court rejects attempts to overturn a previous decision that ordered former President Jacob Zuma to go back to jail after being released on medical parole. We have details of these and some other stories coming your way shortly. Do stay with us. You can find us on DSTV channel 279. We're also streaming across the world on Facebook at TV3 Ghana. Do join us with your thoughts and comments. Let's take the details now. An Accra High Court Human Rights Division has dismissed an application by Reverend Victor Kusi-Boateng, a.k.a. Ama Ata Aidoo, which sought to restrain the Member of Parliament for North Tongue, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, from discussing him in relation to the National Cathedral project.
So you recall that the Reverend Victor Kusi-Boateng, or Ama Ata Aidoo, went to court seeking to gag me. He sought a restraining order that I should not be allowed to continue with the parliamentary oversight I was carrying out, and also that I should not engage in further publication of the findings from the oversight that I had conducted relating to his conduct in the whole National Cathedral scandal. So this is a vindication of what I did put out earlier. It's a clear confirmation, and Reverend Victor Kusi-Boateng, Ama Ata Aidoo, whatever the true identity is, he should be immediately resigning from the National Cathedral Board of Trustees, or the president should fire him. He has absolutely no business remaining on that board. And this judgment gives me further impetus to continue with the investigations and the publications and the parliamentary oversight that I'm carrying out. And I'm particularly excited that this will have a positive bearing, obviously, on the conflict of interest petition at CHRAJ, because what this means is that I did not put out falsehood, or I didn't fabricate when I said that he is one and the same person.
An Accra High Court has dismissed a report by the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, CHRAJ, which made some adverse findings against the former CEO of Public Procurement Authority, Ejenim Boateng. Presiding Judge Audrey Kokuvite ruled that CHRAJ breached the fair hearing rule by substituting parts of the complaint that was filed by anti-graft campaigners Ghana Integrity Initiative GII with its CHRAJ own allegations. The court also concluded that CHRAJ failed to give the applicant ABAJ the chance to cross-examine the witnesses called during their investigations before reaching their conclusions. The court also held that CHRAJ failed to investigate the substantive complaints made by the complainant, but rather the commission focused on matters that were not part of the submissions of the GII, the complainant in the case. The Veterinary Services Department is organizing a 2-day national rabies prevention campaign between today, Friday, July 14, and Saturday, July 15, 2023. The campaign is to help control the rising number of rabies cases in the country. Veterinary officers will be entering homes to vaccinate all dogs.
Ghana recorded 153 suspected cases of rabies and 10 deaths in the first 2 quarters of 2023, according to the Ghana Health Service. The country recorded 462 suspected rabies cases, with 62 deaths around within the same period between 2020 and 2022. These are blamed on the failure of dog owners to vaccinate their dogs. The Veterinary Service of Ghana is taking advantage of this year's World Rabies Day to vaccinate all dogs in the country. 14,000 doses of vaccines have been made available for the exercise in the Greater Accra region.
The increase in the incidence of rabies in several parts of Ghana lately has been blamed on the low vaccination coverage, 8.5%. That can be attributed to owner apathy, perceived high cost of vaccination, and failure to sanction dog owners who did not vaccinate their points.
The La Nkwantanan Medina Municipal Assembly wants to go a step further to sanction persons who leave their dogs to stray. Dog owners are encouraged to take advantage of the exercise to avoid being caught at the wrong side of the law.
It's indeed important to get your dogs vaccinated. Away from that, the Speaker of Parliament has directed the setting up of a 7-member committee to investigate the leaked tape seeking the ousting of the Inspector General of Police. 3 members each must be nominated from both sides, with a technical person joining to investigate the tape.
We need some of you who are very good in IT and other areas to submit your talents and skills to the committee for this work to be done. So I propose that we establish a committee of 7 members. 7 members. Is that okay? 7 members. Leadership will nominate 3 from each side of the House, and we'll get a technical person to add to make it 7. That's why I'm calling it a special committee, so that you investigate this matter and then submit your report. So I await the nominees from the 2 caucuses, 3 each, and then a technical person will also be nominated to assist the committee in its investigation and report to the House. I so direct. Leadership, please, within 1 week, we should get the names submitted. Because I know you have to meet your caucuses and make some consultation within 1 week.
Away from Parliament, there are some stories surrounding issues that matters to the country, and the National House of Chiefs has made its stance clear that it will not accept any action that seeks to promote the LGBTQ community. President of the House, Ojahohoya Ojebi II, said the Ghanaian culture frowns on same-sex marriages and related practices, adding that they would not allow any person or group to advance that cause.
Chiefs have made their stance clear.
LGBTQ+ is evil. We, the chiefs and our subjects, declare that we will not allow any group to propagate any cause, conduct, or behavior called LGBTQ+ or similar, be it man marrying man or woman marrying woman, or in any other form in Ghana. This is an abomination, and we declare as immoral and an affront and infringement of our cherished values.
The Ghana Refugee Board says none of the Burkinabe asylum seekers have been repatriated. Executive Secretary of the Ghana Refugee Board, Tete Paddy, was responding to earlier report by the UNHCR. This followed the Ministry of National Security's screening exercise at Ghana's borders in the Upper East and Upper West regions, where thousands of Burkinabe asylum seekers are camped.
We have been involved in registering refugees and asylum seekers, and we've registered about 3,100 already. However, none of these registered asylum seekers, to the best of my knowledge, has been repatriated. We've started the report. I think we need to get some more clarity on the individuals involved so that we can speak to the issues from a point of knowing exactly what has taken place. So before we go into register any asylum seekers, we make sure we have security clearance before we register them. So to answer your question directly, we have collaborated very well with the security agencies. So there is no cause for alarm in terms of the potential of registering people who of security concern. We work together very well.
Now to a rather sad story, President Akufo-Addo joined family and people from all walks of life to mourn the passing of Ghanaian author Ama Ata Aidoo at her burial service at the forecourt of the State House in Accra. In an emotional tribute, the president praised the late literary icon for her groundbreaking works, which he acknowledged explored complex social issues.
Beautiful, but that was not important.
News of her death dismayed a lot of people. Proof of a towering influence in literary, feminist and political spaces. It was a solemn ceremony at the forecourt of the State House to bid farewell to a prolific author and former Ghanaian Education Minister, Ama Ata Aidoo, who passed away on May 31 at the age of 81. President Akufo-Addo, in a tribute, described her as an outstanding writer and women's advocate.
The community of writers has lost one of its greatest members, one who will be extremely difficult to replace. Through her work, she made a tremendous contribution to the development of our country and continent and expressed so many of the feelings about our fate as Ghanaians and indeed as Africans.
Former President John Dramani Mahama acknowledged her significant contributions to Ghanaian academia.
She's one of our most famous writers. We've all known her as kids growing up, reading her works. But my closest encounter with her was when I published my own book, my first coup d'etat. And she came for the launch and then also visited my house where we held a reading party. She was a very strong character and stood for women's rights and so also for the African personality.
She was Ghana's foremost writer, and her distinguished career spanned several decades. Her literary contribution places her among the generation of African female writers of the post-independence era.
She spoke the truth. She stayed as a Ghanaian, an African, and someone who never wavered in her journey.
Her remains will be conveyed to Abiajik Chiako for the final funeral rites on Saturday, July 15. Ghana and the world may have lost a commanding presence on the literary stage, but her works will remain as cherished classics in African and world literature. Godwin Asideba, TV3, Accra. May her soul rest in perfect peace. Away from that, the National Peace Council is urging Ghanaians to change their attitude to promote a positive image of the country. Chairman of the Council, Reverend Dr. Ernest Edu-Gyamfi, was reacting to the latest Global Peace Index, in which Ghana dropped to 4th place in the sub-Saharan Africa. Ghana ranked second most peaceful country in Africa in 2022.
Factors from the report that looks at low crime rate, robust education and welfare systems, fair pay salary for workers, virtually non-existent tension among the economic class, political stability, freedom of the press, and an increasing political division among the populace. Now, these are all factors that come into play when it comes to some of these issues. But what is of concern to us is that we have been displaced in the West African sub-region by Sierra Leone. And if you look at all the things that we put in place in Ghana as compared to Sierra Leone, we should have been way higher than where we are now. But unfortunately, that is the rating that we have received. But besides all these things, the other thing that we have to look at is the fact that sometimes some of these things come up as perceptions, and we need to be mindful of what we do and how we do certain things. For over a period now, we've had attacks on the security services. We've had the case of the shooting of the immigration officer in Boko. We've had the robbery attack where the policeman was shot. So what is happening is that civilians are now turning their attention now on the security services, which is not good enough for us. And for us as a country, these are things that we ought to be mindful of. That when civilians begin to attack the security services, it's giving an impression as if our security system has broken down. Secondly, the perception on social media is quite strong. If you travel out of this country and meet Ghanaians outside, the impression they have based on what they've read on social media gives an impression as if there's nothing good happening in this country. And sometimes we have to go over and explain to them that some of this information is not true and all of those things. So there are times that the perception we ourselves are putting out does not help.
More on this particular story. Ghana has dropped to 4th place in Sub-Saharan Africa in the latest Global Peace Index, GPI. In the 2022 index, Ghana was ranked 2nd most peaceful country in Africa. Ghana ranked 51st as the most peaceful country in the world per the 2023 Global Peace Index, down 8 places. Sub-Saharan Africa recorded a slight fall in peacefulness in the 2023 GPI, with the average country score deteriorating by 0.57%. Ghana is ranked the 4th most peaceful country in Sub-Saharan Africa, seeing a decline of 0.014. The most peaceful country in the Sub-Saharan African region is Mauritius. Iceland remains the most peaceful country in the world, a position it has held since 2008, while Afghanistan remains the least peaceful country in the world for the 8th consecutive year. The Global Peace Index by the Institute of Economics and Peace is the world's leading measure of global peacefulness and ranks 163 independent states and territories according to their level of peacefulness. On the international front, South Africa's Constitutional Court has rejected an attempt to overturn a previous decision that found former President Jacob Zuma should go back to jail after being released early on medical parole. The top court ruling could send Zuma back to prison 2 years after his initial arrest sparked widespread protest that saw at least 337 people killed. Well, that's rather an unfortunate story from South Africa. We know that the Department of Correctional Services said in a statement that it was studying the judgment and seeking legal advice before commenting on this particular issue. Zuma, 81, was sentenced in 2021 to 15 months imprisonment for defying a court order to give evidence at an inquiry investigating high-level corruption during his 9 years in office, which ended in 2018. He handed himself over to authorities in July 2021, but 2 months later was released on medical parole due to his ill health. Last year, the Supreme Court of Appeals found that the decision to release Zuma on early medical parole was unlawful and that he should return to prison to finish his sentence for contempt of court. You can find more of this and other stories if you log on to 3news.com. My name is Godwin Asidiba. The show continues with Roland Walker. Good morning.